There comes a moment in nearly every life when the mind reaches the end of its own advice. You have considered every possibility. You have replayed every conversation. You have searched for signs, asked for opinions, and tried to force an answer into existence. Yet nothing becomes clearer. Instead, every option seems to create another question. Every path appears uncertain. It is in moments like these that people often believe they have lost their direction. They assume they must think harder, work faster, or discover some hidden piece of information before they can move forward. But perhaps the greatest mistake is believing that uncertainty is solved by more effort from the same state of mind that created the confusion. When you do not know what to do, your first instinct is usually to do something. Anything feels better than standing still. The mind convinces you that action equals progress, even if that action is driven by fear. Yet fearful action often produces fearful results because every outward movement springs from an inward condition. Before the hands move, the imagination has already spoken. Before the world reflects anything back to you, your consciousness has already selected the picture it expects to see. The greatest decision you can make when you do not know what to do is not an external one. It is an internal one. Decide who you are before deciding what to do. The world constantly persuades people that circumstances determine identity. It says that once success arrives, then you may feel successful. Once love appears, then you may feel loved. Once money comes, then you may feel secure. But life repeatedly demonstrates the opposite. The inner experience becomes the blueprint from which the outer world is eventually constructed. Consider how often people postpone peace until the problem disappears. They believe that calm belongs on the other side of certainty. Yet peace is not the reward of certainty. Peace is the birthplace of clarity. A restless mind cannot hear wisdom because it is already occupied with fear. An anxious imagination cannot perceive opportunity because it is busy rehearsing disaster. The answer you seek is often hidden beneath the noise you continue producing. If you truly do not know what to do, then stop trying to solve the future for a moment. Instead, ask yourself a different question. If everything were already resolved in the most wonderful way, how would I see myself right now? Not tomorrow, not after the miracle. Right now. That question shifts your attention from chasing outcomes to occupying a new state of being. Suddenly, your energy changes. Instead of searching for proof, you begin becoming the person who no longer requires proof. The outer world may still appear unchanged, yet something far more significant has begun to transform. Your relationship with reality is no longer one of desperation but of quiet confidence. Many people underestimate the creative influence of the images they repeatedly entertain. Every day the imagination paints countless scenes without permission. Some imagine rejection before making a phone call. Others imagine failure before beginning a project. Some rehearse illness while their body remains healthy. Others replay old disappointments until the past becomes more alive than the present. Then they wonder why similar experiences continue to appear. The imagination is never inactive. It is always accepting instructions through repeated attention. When you do not know what to do, become aware of what you have been imagining. That alone may explain why confusion has become familiar. A mind that repeatedly imagines obstacles naturally begins to believe obstacles are everywhere. A consciousness occupied with lack discovers evidence of lack in every direction. The world faithfully mirrors dominant assumptions because perception itself is shaped by expectation. This does not mean pretending problems do not exist. It means refusing to give them creative authority. There is a profound difference between acknowledging a challenge and making it your permanent identity. One observes the circumstance, the other becomes imprisoned by it. Imagine standing before a mirror while attempting to rearrange your reflection with your hands. It would seem impossible because the image only changes after you change yourself. Life behaves in much the same way. Many spend years attempting to force the reflection to smile while never changing the face presented to the mirror. They negotiate with circumstances instead of transforming consciousness. They fight appearances instead of changing assumptions. When confusion arrives, the temptation is to seek certainty from outside yourself. You ask everyone else what they would do. You collect opinions until your own inner voice becomes almost impossible to hear. Advice has value, but it should never replace inner conviction. No one else occupies your consciousness. No one else imagines your future for you. No one else lives from the assumptions you repeatedly accept as true. The deepest guidance rarely shouts. It often arrives as a quiet knowing after the mind has stopped arguing. But that stillness cannot emerge while fear continues demanding immediate answers. Silence becomes powerful because it allows a greater intelligence within you to become noticeable. There is extraordinary wisdom in allowing yourself to rest before deciding. Not because delay creates solutions, but because a settled consciousness sees what an anxious one cannot. Have you noticed how answers often appear while walking, resting, showering, or waking from sleep? These moments are significant because resistance temporarily relaxes. The mind stops forcing, and insight quietly enters. When you feel completely uncertain, there is one practice that changes everything. Instead of imagining every possible way things could go wrong, imagine one simple scene that would naturally happen after everything has already gone right. Keep it uncomplicated. Perhaps someone congratulates you. Perhaps you feel overwhelming relief. Perhaps you close your eyes at night with gratitude because the issue has already resolved itself. Allow that experience to become emotionally familiar, not because you are escaping reality, but because you are introducing your consciousness to a higher possibility. The outer world often appears stubborn. It may insist nothing has changed. Old evidence may continue presenting itself, yet every transformation begins invisibly before becoming visible. Seeds spend time beneath the surface before anyone sees evidence of growth. No one stands over the soil demanding instant results because they understand the unseen process is already unfolding. Yet many people plant a new assumption in the imagination, only to dig it up hours later with doubt, fear, and constant questioning. Patience is not waiting because nothing is happening. Patience is remaining faithful because something unseen has already begun. Think of how differently you would move through today if you genuinely believed life was arranging itself in your favor. Your conversations would soften, your posture would change, your decisions would become less desperate. You would notice opportunities previously hidden behind anxiety. You would recognize connections that fear overlooked. Nothing magical happened outside you first. The miracle began with perception. There is enormous creative power in refusing to identify with temporary uncertainty. You are not confusion. You are awareness observing confusion. You are not fear. You are consciousness capable of selecting a different assumption. Identity always precedes experience. Some believe they must eliminate every negative thought before anything good can happen. That creates another struggle. Instead, gently redirect attention whenever you notice yourself rehearsing unwanted outcomes. Do not fight the thought. Simply replace the scene. The imagination follows repetition. Whatever receives your sustained attention gradually becomes natural. Ask yourself who you become when no problem defines you. What qualities naturally emerge? Confidence, gratitude, ease, joy, generosity. These are not emotions reserved for perfect circumstances. They are states of consciousness available now. The more consistently you occupy them, the more your external world begins reflecting their pattern. You may still take action. In fact, action becomes clearer after consciousness changes. Instead of acting from panic, you act from certainty. Instead of chasing opportunities, you recognize them. Instead of forcing outcomes, you cooperate with them. Inspired action feels remarkably different from fearful effort because it carries an inner sense of rightness. Many remarkable changes begin with decisions that appear invisible to everyone else. Choosing to believe in possibility instead of limitation. Choosing gratitude before evidence. Choosing confidence before results. Choosing peace before certainty. These decisions seem insignificant until life gradually reorganizes itself around them. When you no longer know what to do, remember that not every season requires movement. Some seasons ask for inner transformation before outer direction appears. The caterpillar does not rush the process inside the cocoon. The transformation happens in silence before flight becomes possible. Your imagination is not merely a place where fantasies exist. It is the workshop where future experiences are first assembled. Every loving relationship existed first as an assumption. Every successful achievement was imagined before it became visible. Every meaningful change appeared inwardly before the senses recognized it outwardly. Do not measure progress solely by appearances. Measure it by the quality of the consciousness you consistently occupy. If you respond to uncertainty today with greater peace than yesterday, progress has already begun. If fear no longer dominates every decision, progress has already begun. If hope feels more natural than despair, progress has already begun. There will always be moments when life seems to pause. Instead of interpreting those pauses as failure, see them as invitations to become someone new. The greatest breakthroughs often occur after the greatest stillness, because stillness creates space for a different identity to emerge. You are not waiting for life to choose you. Life continually reflects the version of yourself you most consistently accept. Every assumption becomes a quiet invitation for reality to organize itself accordingly. Therefore, guard your inner conversations carefully. Speak inwardly as the person whose answer has already arrived. Think from fulfillment instead of toward it. Feel from completion instead of longing. One peaceful assumption maintained with quiet persistence possesses greater creative influence than countless fearful reactions repeated every day. Your inner world deserves greater trust than passing appearances, because appearances are temporary expressions, while consciousness is the originating cause. If you wake tomorrow still uncertain about your next step, resist the urge to panic. Begin by establishing your inner position. Tell yourself that clarity belongs to you. Tell yourself that wisdom is already present. Tell yourself that every necessary opportunity is unfolding at the perfect moment. These are not empty affirmations when accepted sincerely. They become instructions given to consciousness itself. Then continue living your day with the quiet expectation that guidance will reveal itself naturally. Listen carefully. Observe without strain. Act when inspiration feels effortless rather than frantic. Trust that the path becomes visible to the traveler who walks with inner confidence rather than outer certainty. Eventually, you will look back and realize the period you once feared was actually preparing you for a greater version of yourself. The uncertainty was never your enemy. It was the doorway through which a new identity entered. The answers did not appear because you finally forced life to cooperate. They appeared because you became the person capable of recognizing them. So whenever you find yourself asking, "What should I do?" pause before searching for another strategy. Return first to your own consciousness. Choose the state you would occupy if everything had already worked out. Rest there. Think from there. Speak from there. Live from there. Allow that invisible change to become so natural that it no longer feels like practice but identity itself. And then watch carefully. The world has an extraordinary way of rearranging itself around a person who has stopped asking circumstances for permission to believe in a better reality, and has instead accepted that the greatest change always begins within. From that inner position, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop living as someone waiting to be rescued by the next event, and you begin living as someone whose inner certainty quietly shapes the events to come. This shift is almost impossible to explain to someone who has never experienced it, because it does not announce itself with fireworks. It arrives gently. One day you notice that situations which once disturbed you no longer possess the same power. The same circumstance appears, yet you respond differently. That different response becomes the beginning of a different life. People often ask how long it takes before the outer world reflects an inner transformation. The question itself reveals where attention still rests. It remains fixed upon appearances instead of consciousness. Imagine planting a tree and digging it up every morning to see whether the roots have begun growing. Such behavior would prevent the very growth you desire. Yet this is precisely what many do with their assumptions. They imagine one noble possibility today, doubt it tomorrow, abandon it the next day, and then conclude that imagination has no influence. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is profoundly creative. Your inner conversations deserve far more attention than most people give them. Throughout the day, you are constantly speaking to yourself, often without realizing it. Those silent conversations become the atmosphere in which your future develops. If your inward speech continually says, "Nothing ever works for me," life faithfully presents experiences that appear to agree. If it repeatedly insists, "Everything is becoming easier for me," the mind gradually begins noticing pathways that were previously invisible. The world has not necessarily changed first, your awareness has. This is why guarding your inner dialogue is not an exercise in forced positivity. It is an act of creative responsibility. Every repeated statement accepted as true eventually becomes familiar. Whatever becomes familiar begins to feel natural. Whatever feels natural influences perception, decisions, expectations, and behavior. Before long, circumstances appear to confirm what consciousness has quietly been accepting all along. There is also tremendous value in refusing to worship the evidence of the present moment. Today's circumstances are not final verdicts. They are snapshots of assumptions that have already been entertained. They tell you where attention has been, not where it must remain. If you can understand this, discouragement loses much of its strength. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what new assumption would I rather live from now? That question opens a door no circumstance can close. Suppose you have been searching for work and every application seems to end in disappointment. The ordinary response is to conclude that opportunities are scarce, that luck favors others, or that something is fundamentally wrong with you. But notice how quickly those conclusions become assumptions. Soon, every new application carries the weight of previous failures. The imagination silently whispers, this will probably end the same way. Even before receiving an answer, the mind has rehearsed rejection. Now imagine approaching the same situation from an entirely different state. Before submitting another application, you spend time becoming inwardly familiar with the feeling of already being valued, already contributing, already receiving appreciation for your abilities. You no longer imagine yourself seeking approval. You imagine yourself expressing gifts that are welcomed. Though the action of sending an application remains the same, the consciousness behind the action has completely changed. The difference is invisible to the eye, yet enormous in creative influence. Or consider relationships. Many enter new relationships carrying old assumptions. They expect betrayal because betrayal happened before. They anticipate abandonment because abandonment became emotionally familiar years earlier. Without realizing it, they continue expecting yesterday to repeat itself. Then each small misunderstanding becomes evidence supporting an old belief. The past quietly governs the present through assumption. Freedom begins the moment you recognize that you are not obligated to continue imagining from old wounds. Memory may exist, but memory need not become prophecy. Every day offers another opportunity to occupy a different state of consciousness. There is a beautiful simplicity in living this way. It does not require controlling every thought that passes through the mind. Thoughts come and go like clouds across the sky. What matters is the thought you welcome as your dwelling place. Which idea do you return to repeatedly? Which possibility receives your faith? Which identity feels most natural when no one else is watching? Your answers to those questions shape far more than temporary emotions. They quietly influence the entire direction of experience. One of the greatest misunderstandings is believing that imagination is separate from reality. Many dismiss imagination as fantasy because they only respect what can be measured with the senses. Yet every invention existed first as an unseen idea. Every building began as an invisible design. Every conversation happened first as an inward intention. The invisible has always preceded the visible. Why should your own life be different? If an architect never doubted the importance of a blueprint, why should you doubt the importance of the blueprint held within consciousness? The outer structure simply follows the inner design. Change the design, remain faithful to it, and the visible structure eventually reflects it. Sometimes people become discouraged because unexpected challenges appear after they have embraced a new assumption. They conclude they must have failed. But appearances are not always immediate indicators of direction. A river often changes course gradually. A ship may continue moving in its original direction for a while, even after the captain has turned the wheel. Persistence matters because unseen adjustments often require time before becoming obvious. During that interval, your greatest work is not forcing results, but remaining inwardly loyal to the state you have chosen. Ask yourself throughout the day, from which version of myself am I thinking right now? Not what should I do, but who am I being? The answer determines everything that follows. Are you thinking as someone abandoned by opportunity, or as someone surrounded by possibilities waiting to reveal themselves? Are you speaking inwardly as someone burdened by life, or as someone supported by it? Are you making decisions from fear of loss or confidence in abundance? Every state has its own thoughts, emotions, expectations, and actions. Change the state and the rest gradually reorganizes itself. There will be moments when the senses argue with your chosen assumption. Bills may still arrive. Delays may still occur. Certain people may continue behaving exactly as before. Do not mistake temporary appearances for permanent reality. A gardener does not abandon the seed because the field still looks empty. The absence of visible growth never proves the absence of invisible development. This understanding removes much unnecessary struggle. Instead of constantly checking whether your desire has arrived, you begin practicing the feeling that it already belongs within your experience. Gratitude becomes easier because it no longer depends upon visible proof. Confidence becomes steadier because it no longer rises and falls with daily circumstances. Ironically, this is often when circumstances begin changing, not because you demanded change from the outside, but because you stopped resisting it within yourself. There is also wisdom in simplifying your desire. The mind enjoys complexity, but transformation often begins with one clear conviction. One simple inner decision, faithfully maintained, carries greater power than 100 scattered wishes. Choose one truth you are willing to live from. It might be, I am guided. It might be, everything is working together for my good. It might be, I am deeply loved. Whatever it is, allow it to become the foundation beneath every experience. Return to it whenever fear attempts to establish residence in your awareness. At first, this may feel unfamiliar. That is perfectly natural. Every identity once felt unfamiliar until repetition made it seem obvious. There was a time when every habit you possess today was new. Repetition transformed effort into instinct. The same principle applies to consciousness itself. Continue returning to your chosen state, and eventually it will feel more natural than the old patterns ever did. Notice also how different life becomes when you stop asking whether you deserve good things. Existence does not demand perfection before offering possibility. The sun rises for everyone. Air is freely given. Life continually demonstrates generosity, yet people often deny themselves inward permission to receive. They carry hidden beliefs that they must earn peace through struggle or prove their worth through suffering. Release those ideas gently. You were never meant to define yourself by your difficulties. Challenges may visit your experience, but they need not become your identity. You are infinitely greater than any temporary condition appearing before you. The moment you begin identifying with possibility instead of limitation, the imagination awakens in a completely different way. Instead of asking, what if everything falls apart? It quietly wonders, what if everything comes together more beautifully than I ever expected? That single question opens a door through which countless new assumptions may enter.